Imagine your furniture flying across the room, strange voices whispering in the dark, and your daughter levitating in her bed. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. It's the terrifying reality for a family in London, where a poltergeist unleashed a reign of terror that baffled the world. Welcome to the Enfield haunting. The year was 1977. The place was a council house in Enfield, North London. It was home to the Hodgson family. Peggy Hodgson was a single mother. She had 4 children: Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. They lived a normal life. Their house was a quiet home, but that changed on a warm August night. The strange occurrences began small. The children went to bed. They heard footsteps on the stairs. They heard a strange sound, a sound of a chair sliding. Peggy went to check. She found nothing out of place. She thought it was just the house settling. She told the children to go back to sleep, but the sounds came back. They came back louder. They came back more often. The children were scared. They told their mother. Their mother was a skeptic. She did not believe in ghosts. She thought they were playing a prank. But then, on a different night, something else happened. The children heard a knocking sound, a loud knocking sound. The sound came from the walls. It came from the floor. It came from the ceiling. It was a loud noise. It would stop. Then it would start again. Peggy went to the children's room. She heard the sound too. It was a clear sound, a sound of a fist hitting wood, a sound with no source. Peggy was confused. She was afraid. She told her neighbors. The neighbors heard the sound too. They said it was a ghost. They said it was a poltergeist. If you are enjoying this story and you want to hear more tales like this one, be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. And please subscribe to the Belmoze channel. It helps us bring you more frightening stories. The haunting quickly escalated. The poltergeist became more active. The objects in the house began to move on their own. The children's chest of drawers slid across the room. It was a heavy piece of furniture. It slid on the floor. It slid with no help. The children saw it. They screamed. Peggy saw it too. She was in a state of shock. Her disbelief was gone. Her fear was high. The house was not safe. The house was a nightmare. The family ran out of the house. They ran to a neighbor's home. They were too scared to stay inside. They called the police. The police came to the house. They were also skeptical. The officer went inside. The officer saw a chair move on its own. It slid across the floor. The officer was shocked. He wrote a report. He wrote that he could not explain it. He could not find a reason for it. He said he saw a chair move on its own. This was a powerful piece of evidence. A police officer saw the events. The news spread. The story came out in the newspapers. It became a public event. 2 paranormal investigators came to the house. Their names were Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair. They were members of a group called the Society for Psychical Research. They came to the house with cameras. They came with tape recorders. They came with notebooks. They wanted to see the events for themselves. They wanted to document the haunting. Their arrival was the start of the next phase. The poltergeist activity increased. The poltergeist liked the attention. The poltergeist became more violent. The investigators heard the knocking. They heard the voices. They saw the objects fly. Toys, books, and marbles flew across the room. They flew with great force. They hit the walls. They hit the ceiling. The family and the investigators were terrified. But the poltergeist had a new focus. Its focus was on Janet Hodgson. She was an 11-year-old girl. She was the main target. The poltergeist began to attack her. It threw objects at her. It pulled her hair. It made her clothes rip. It became a personal attack. The most terrifying thing began. The poltergeist started to speak. The voice came from Janet. It was not her voice. It was a deep voice. It was a gravelly voice. It was a man's voice. The voice said it was the spirit of a man named Bill. It said he used to live in the house. It said he died in the house. It said he was blind. It said he died in a chair in the living room. The voice was loud. The voice was clear. The voice would answer questions. It would talk to the investigators. It would talk to reporters. The voice made the case famous. It made the case a real event. A ghost was talking. A ghost was speaking through a little girl. It was a nightmare that was getting worse, a nightmare that was just beginning. It was not a horror movie. It was the truth. It was the Enfield haunting, a haunting that was just getting started. The haunting of the Hodgson house took a terrifying turn. The poltergeist, the noisy spirit, started to talk. The voice came from the youngest daughter, Janet. She was just 11 years old. The voice was not hers. It was a man's voice. It was a deep voice. It was a rough voice. It sounded like an old man. It was guttural. It sounded like it came from the throat. This chilling sound was the voice of the dead. The voice gave a name. It said it was the spirit of Bill Wilkins. He was a grumpy old man. The voice said he had lived in the house. The voice said he had died in the house. He died in the chair in the living room. He said he went blind before he died. The voice was angry. It was rude. It was demanding. It told the family to get out. It told them the house was his. The family was terrified. They heard the voice every day. The voice was a new form of terror. It was a direct form of attack. The paranormal investigators were there. Morris Grass and Guy Lyon Playfair brought tape recorders. They set up the recorders. They wanted to capture the voice. They captured many hours of the voice. The recordings were clear. The recordings were undeniable. They were chilling confirmation. The family was not alone. The dead man was speaking. He was speaking through a little girl. The investigators played the tapes for others. They played them for sound experts. They played them for the police. The recordings made the case famous around the world. The investigators talked to the voice. They asked it questions. They treated it like a person. They treated it like a ghost. They asked Bill Wilkins about his life. They asked him about his death. He answered them. He gave them details. The details were specific. The investigators checked the details. They talked to the son of the previous owner. The son confirmed the story. He confirmed his father's name was Bill Wilkins. He confirmed his father went blind. He confirmed his father died in the living room chair. This confirmation made the case stronger. It made the voices real. It made the haunting true. Skepticism was high. People did not believe the voice. They said Janet was faking it. They said she was a ventriloquist. Ventriloquism is an act. It is a trick. A person talks without moving their lips. This was a challenge to the investigators. Could an 11-year-old girl be so good? Could she hold that deep voice for hours? Could she do it when she was in a trance? Voice experts studied the recordings. They found a problem. The voice had a low frequency, a low sound. An adult man can make this sound. A young girl's voice cannot make this sound. The throat is too small. The vocal cords are too short. It was a physical impossibility. The experts were confused. They did not have an answer. The voice was real. The voice was a mystery. It defied science. It defied logic. The voice was not Janet's voice. It was the voice of a dead man. The act of speaking was a struggle for Janet. She would go into a trance. She would close her eyes. She would hold her throat. She would look tired. She would seem drained of energy. The voice came from her. It came out of her. It used her body. It used her energy. This was a torment for her. It was a physical toll. The voice was abusive. It was hateful. It complained about the family. It complained about the noise. It wanted them out. He wanted his house back. The conversations were tense. The investigators would ask about the knocking. Bill would answer. He would say, "I am knocking." They would ask about the flying objects. Bill would say, "I am throwing things." He was proud of his power. He was proud of his terror. He was not a quiet ghost. He was a loud ghost. He was a poltergeist. He was a presence, a real presence. The voice gave the spirit a name. It gave the spirit a face. It gave the spirit a motive. It made the haunting personal. It made the haunting a confrontation. A confrontation between the living and the dead. A confrontation captured on tape. The voice is still there. The voice is still chilling. It is the voice of the dead. A voice that broke the rules of the living world. The voice of Bill Wilkins, the angry old man. A voice that confirmed the terror. The Enfield haunting was a true event, a true nightmare. A nightmare that talked. The poltergeist's reign of terror found its primary target. The target was Janet Hodgson. She was just a child. She was a girl of 11 years. The spirit became more than a noisy ghost. It became a tormentor. It was a personal attack. The haunting became a physical ordeal. It became a nightmare for the young girl. Janet's body became a toy for the poltergeist. She was thrown from her bed. It was not a small movement. It was a powerful, violent movement. She would be sleeping. She would wake up on the floor. The bed would shake. The bed would rock. She would feel a force. An unseen force would lift her. It would throw her to the floor. The sound of her body hitting the floor was a loud sound. The sound would wake the family. The sound would wake the neighbors. The neighbors would come over. They saw her on the floor. They saw the bed was empty. They did not understand. They could not explain it. The physical assaults became worse. The poltergeist had a strong anger for Janet. It pulled her hair. It pulled it hard. She would scream. She would cry. Her hair would be in her hands. It would scratch her skin. Red marks would appear on her arms. They would appear on her legs. The scratches were a sign. They were a sign of the poltergeist's hatred. They were a sign of its anger. Her clothes would rip. Her shirts would rip. Her pajamas would tear. The fabric would tear on its own. It tore with a loud sound, a sound that made her cry. The most terrifying thing happened. The poltergeist made Janet levitate. It made her float in the air. It was a moment captured in a photo. The photographer was there. The photographer's name was Graham Morris. He saw Janet on her bed. She was in a trance. She was not moving. Then her body lifted. She rose from the bed. She floated in the air. She was not on a wire. She was not on a rope. There was nothing holding her up. The photo shows her in midair. Her face is a mask of fear. Her body is a testament to the power of the ghost. It was not a trick. It was a supernatural event. The photo is now famous. It is the proof of the haunting, the proof of the levitation, the proof of Janet's torment. The haunting was not just physical, it was mental. The poltergeist controlled Janet. It made her do things. She would go into trance-like states. Her eyes would roll back. She would not speak. She would not move. She would become a doll. A doll that the poltergeist used. The spirit would make her act out. It would make her violent. She would hit her brother. She would hit her sister. She would hit her mother. She did not want to, but she had no control. The spirit made her do it. She would cry after. She would feel bad, but she could not stop it. The voice was a form of possession. The poltergeist used her body. It used her throat. It used her mind. It made her speak strange words, words that were not English, words that were not from this world. People called it speaking in tongues. It was another sign of control, another sign of the spirit's power. The voice would talk. It would go on for hours. Then the voice would stop. Janet would wake up. She would not remember anything. She would not remember the words. She would not remember the attacks. The poltergeist took over her mind. It took over her body. It left her with no memory. It left her with no peace. The haunting was a terrifying ordeal for the young girl. She could not go to school. She could not sleep. She could not play. Her life was a constant state of fear. She was afraid of the dark. She was afraid of the light. She was afraid of the quiet. She was afraid of the noise. She was afraid of her own body, a body that was not her own, a body that was a tool for a ghost. Her childhood was taken from her. The poltergeist was her tormentor. It was her warden. It was a prison she could not escape, a prison she lived in. It was a terrifying reality. It was the torment of a child. It was the nightmare that was the Enfield haunting, a nightmare that was getting worse, a nightmare that was still unfolding, a nightmare for a little girl, a nightmare for the whole family. The Enfield poltergeist case is one of the most famous paranormal cases in all of history. It is also one of the most debated. The question is simple. Was it a real haunting, or was it a hoax? Was it a ghost, or was it a group of children playing a cruel prank? The case has a lot of evidence. It has a lot of witnesses. It also has a lot of doubts. The skeptics came first. They saw the whole case as a hoax by the children. They had many reasons. Their most powerful reason was an admission from the children themselves. A news team went to the house. They did an interview. The camera was rolling. The reporter asked a question. He asked if they had faked any of the events. Janet and her sister Margaret answered. They laughed. They said yes. They said they faked some of the events. They said they did it for a joke. This was a huge blow to the case. It was a huge piece of evidence for the skeptics. It was an admission of guilt. It made people think the whole thing was a lie. Skeptics also had a theory about the voice. They said the deep, guttural voice of Bill Wilkins was a trick. They said it was ventriloquism. Ventriloquism is an act of a person talking without moving their lips. This is a hard act to do, but they said Janet did it. A film crew had a moment of luck. They filmed Janet. She was sitting on a couch. She had a glass of water. She was talking in a deep voice. She was not a professional. Her lips moved. They saw her lips move on the film. They saw her cheat. This was a powerful piece of evidence. It made people doubt the voice. It made them doubt the story of a dead man talking. The famous levitation photo also had a big problem. Skeptics said it was not levitation. They said it was a trick. The camera took a picture in a fast burst. The photos showed Janet in a series. The first photo showed her on the bed. The next photo showed her in the air. The next photo showed her landing. The skeptics said she did not float. She jumped. She jumped from the bed. The photo was a photo of a jump. It was not a photo of a float. It was a trick of the eye. It was not a real paranormal event. It was just a child in midair. The children's brother, Johnny, also admitted to faking some things. He said they threw some objects. He said they did it for fun. The family got a lot of attention. They were on TV, they were in the newspapers, they had famous paranormal investigators in their house. This was a lot of attention for a family. The skeptics said the children wanted the attention. They wanted to be special. They wanted to be famous. A hoax was the way to get that fame. A hoax was a way to get people to believe them. A hoax was a way to keep the show going. The pressure was high. The stakes were high. The children felt the pressure. They wanted to keep the show going. They wanted to keep the people interested. They did it for fame. They did it for money. They did it for fun. But the believers had their own reasons. The investigators, the family, and the witnesses all had a different story. They pointed to the police report. The report said a police officer saw a chair move on its own. The children could not have faked this. The officer had no reason to lie. He was a professional. He saw it with his own eyes. The report is a powerful piece of evidence. It is a piece of evidence that is hard to explain away. The investigators also had a point about the voice. They said the voice was not from Janet. They said it was a physical impossibility. A young girl's vocal cords cannot make that sound. The sound was too low. The experts could not explain it. The voice was a mystery. It defied science. It defied logic. The voice was a solid piece of evidence. It was a piece of evidence that could not be faked. It was a voice from the dead. The haunting went on for 2 years. The events were constant. The knocking was constant. The objects flew all the time. The family was in constant fear. The investigators were there for months. They saw things. They heard things. They had recordings. They had photos. It was too much to fake. The children could not have kept it up for so long. The amount of energy it would take to keep it going was too much. The haunting was a constant barrage of chaos. It was not a show. It was a real event. Janet's torment was real. Her body showed the signs. She had bruises. She had scratches. She was in a trance. She would go into a fit. She would act violent. She would not remember the events. She was a child. She was under great stress. The skeptics said she faked it. But others said she faked it because she was a child. She was under pressure. She wanted a break. She wanted to be normal. A child under so much pressure might lie. A child might lie to get people to leave her alone. A child might lie to get a moment of peace. Her admission was not a sign of a hoax. It was a sign of a child who was suffering. A child who was at her breaking point. A child who was at the center of a nightmare. The debate still rages on. Was it a hoax? Or was it a haunting? We may never know. The truth is still out there. Despite the controversy, the Enfield poltergeist case remains one of the most famous and terrifying paranormal cases in history. It has been the subject of numerous books. It has been the subject of documentaries. It has been the subject of movies. The case continues to fascinate and to terrify. It cemented its place as a chilling example of a haunting that blurs the line between reality and the supernatural. The legacy of the Enfield haunting is a legacy of fear. The story was big news in the 1970s. It became a global legend. The first book was written by one of the investigators. Guy Lyon Playfair wrote a book called This House is Haunted. The book told the full story. It told the story of the family. It told the story of the investigators. It told the story of the voice. It told the story of the levitation. The book was a sensation. It brought the terror of Enfield to people all over the world. It made people believe. It made people afraid. The book showed the world the evidence. It showed the world the photos. It showed the world the truth, a terrifying truth. The book was the beginning of the legacy. Documentaries were made. They showed the real place. They showed the real people. They showed the real photos. They played the real audio recordings. The chilling voice of Bill Wilkins was heard by millions. The voice was a powerful piece of evidence. It was a terrifying sound. It made the nightmare real. The documentaries showed the struggle of the Hodgson family. They showed the brave investigators. They showed the haunting was real. They showed the haunting was documented. They showed the haunting was not a simple thing. It was a complex event. An event that was a part of history. An event that was a part of history. The story of the Enfield haunting reached its biggest audience with a movie. The movie was called The Conjuring 2. The movie told the story of the Hodgson family. It told the story of the haunting. It told the story of the investigators. The movie made the haunting more dramatic. The movie showed the levitation. The movie showed the voice. The movie showed the spirit. It made the haunting a full-blown horror film. The movie was a hit. It made the case famous all over the world. Millions of people saw the story. Millions of people learned about the haunting. The movie blurred the line. It blurred the line between reality and the supernatural. The movie was a part of the legacy. It was a part of the fear. The case is now a permanent part of the paranormal record. Paranormal investigators study it. They study the case files. They study the photos. They study the audio recordings. The case is a textbook case for a poltergeist. It has all the classic elements. It has moving objects. It has knocking sounds. It has a voice. It has physical attacks. It has levitation. It is a case with a lot of evidence. It is a case with a lot of doubt. It is a perfect case to study. It teaches people about the supernatural. It teaches people about skepticism. It teaches people about the line between what is real and what is not. The Enfield haunting is a living legend. People still visit Green Street. They stand outside the house. They take pictures. They want to feel the energy. They want to be close to the history. They want to be close to the fear. The house is a normal house now. A family lives there. They have a normal life. But the house has a history that is full of chaos, a history that is full of fear, a history that is a living part of the present. The poltergeist is a part of the house's soul. The terror never really left. It just went from the house to the world. It went into the books. It went into the movies. It went into the minds of people. The ghost of the haunting is always there. The deep, guttural voice of Bill Wilkins is still on the audio recordings. The famous photo of Janet levitating is still a powerful image. The story of a child's torment is still heartbreaking. The legacy is not just a story, it is a feeling of dread, a feeling of fear, a feeling that a house can be evil, a feeling that a spirit can be real. The Enfield poltergeist case is a chilling example. It is an example of the supernatural. It is an example of the power of the unknown. It is a story that will always be told. It will always be a part of us. It will always be a part of the fear. The haunting is over, but the legacy of fear will never end. If you found this story compelling, please like this video. It helps us know you want to see more content like this. Leave a comment below with your own thoughts on the Enfield poltergeist. And for more terrifying mysteries and chilling tales, be sure to subscribe to the Belmoze channel. Your support means the world to us. The house is quiet now. The fear is not. The fear lives on in the stories. It lives on in the documentaries. It lives on in the movies. The fear is the legacy. It is a legacy that will last forever. It will last for all of time. The Enfield haunting is a living legend. It is a legend of terror.